All right, guys, welcome back to Girls Next Level. Bridget, I'm excited to talk about this episode.
Yeah?
There's just a lot to it. Like, I didn't really think there would be. I'm like, oh, this is like the patriotic episode. Cool. It'll be a cute little discussion. But then as I rewatched it, I was like, there's a lot to break down here.
There was a lot. I was excited to watch it. I didn't, I had a couple of things that I was interested to see how they would play out this many years later. I was really excited to see the scene where I went to go see my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, I thought it would be kind of like just a sweet, very patriotic, fun episode. But I have so many notes for it.
I know what you mean because it's so much to cover. And one thing I wanted to say about this episode before we start is, as a storytelling episode, I think it's pretty well done. Like, I think episodes 5 and 6 are well done as storytelling episodes. I think episodes 1 to 3 are hatchet jobs on our character. And I think episode 4, even though it's a fun episode where we go to Vegas, I feel like that episode is like missing a scene near the end or something. Like, the storytelling just isn't finished. But I think they did a good job with episode 5 and 6 as far as like telling a story and giving you just enough drama. I might not love everything in it personally, but I think they're pretty well done.
Right. Well, I liked how it got started right on the rolling hills with the slip and slide because that is our favorite thing about 4th of July.
I know, so much fun. We're back at the front of the mansion on the rolling hills, and we're showing off the homemade bootleg slip and slide that we would do every year at the 4th of July party. And this scene is interesting because it's a mishmash of new footage they got right before 4th of July and old footage that they used for the pilot.
Yeah.
And if you're observant, you can tell that they switch back and forth because when they did it for the pilot, it was just basic, like slip and slides with like a tarp you could land in at the end. And then for 4th of July, they added another thing. Because you know there's those inflatable like archways that go over slip and slides that spray
Keep it
water
wet.
down onto
Yeah.
it. Yeah, they added a couple of those. But you can see in this scene, they go back and forth cutting between it without and then with.
That is super observant because I remember seeing it both ways, but I didn't make the mental note in my head that it was switching.
Yeah, they're using footage from the pilot, which if you guys remember, the pilot, it shows Hank and Brian and the guys setting up the slip and slide, and I'm talking about how excited I am about it, and I'm like the first one to go try it, and I'm wearing this yellow polka dot bikini from Trashy that I loved. It was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So they're mishmashing both of those days.
Yeah. And then do you remember the people that make slip and slide were pissed that we kept using slip and slide?
Yes, the company Whammo, which makes or used to make slip and slides and hula hoops,
Yes.
sent a cease and desist to the production company of Girls Next Door saying we need to stop saying those names, which is bullshit because it's just fair use. We're just talking about their stuff.
And because we're using it.
Yeah, exactly. And
Like, what are we supposed to call it?
Yeah, because you guys will see in the next episode we're hula hooping and we're talking about the hula hoops. And those are kind of things that we used a lot. Like, they had hula hoops sitting out for the fun in the sun parties. Of course, we're very excited about the slip and slides. So Whammo sent a cease and desist to Prometheus Productions, or E, or whoever they sent it to, because they felt like our show was too adult and we shouldn't be talking about, like, kids' toys. Which is dumb. You can talk about it. It's a free country.
Yeah, and it's like if you don't call it slip and slides, and you don't call it hula hoops, what are you supposed to call it?
Exactly. Like, I didn't even know hula hoop was a registered trademark. I thought that was a generic term.
Me too.
Because what do you call it? Just a hoop?
Yeah, like a spinning hoop, a waist hoop.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
And what do you call a slip and slide? I guess a water slide, but I think of a water slide as like a big tube, like professional thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And a slip and slide's like what we had, a bootleg, like piece of plastic that you go running down.
Exactly. It's so ridiculous. And it's not like we were defaming them or anything. We're always talking about it in really flattering terms, but, you know, they didn't want us to talk about it. And it reminds me of later, there would be something where Kendra on an episode said something about Olive Garden, and then Olive Garden pitched a fit and said they didn't want to be mentioned on our show.
Well, at some point we need to get into also the problems with the advertisers and stuff and how they kept threatening to cancel our show. And
yeah, because you guys, this show was controversial, and I don't know when exactly the right time to get into it will be. I guess we'll figure out as we go. We'll kind of remember like when we first became aware of it and when it first became a thing with E. But there was always issues with like people targeting our advertisers and saying, you need to stop advertising on E because they do this show and it's horrible because it's Playboy. And the reason people were anti this show wasn't because, are those girls okay? Are they getting paid? Are they being treated fairly? Nothing like that that I would think you should be concerned about. It was just because they were anti-nudity. Like anything that had to do with Playboy, it was too risque, it was too nude, which I might jump on the back and be like, yeah, they shouldn't have been showing us unblurred when our understanding was that we were unblurred. But that was not where their concern was coming from. It was strictly like them being prudy. You know what I mean? Like, let's shut down this wild stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
So that was ridiculous.
I think a good time to talk about that might be like towards the end of season 1, like when we're wrapping it up, because that's when it really comes into play. Because then E would turn it around on us and use it against us. Like, well, I don't know if you guys are going to get picked up. I don't know if we can pay anymore. You know, it's really hard to get advertisers, and like threatening more, like that the show might get canceled, that there might not be any more seasons. And I felt like they also used that to get us to cooperate.
100%. That was a tactic because advertising wasn't the excuse, but I was listening to an episode of the Drama Queens podcast. It's about One Tree Hill. And I guess even though One Tree Hill was like this super successful show with a huge following, the actors on that were saying that every year that it was like, well, we don't know if we're going to get picked up. We don't know. They would act like it wasn't the hit that it was because they wanted the actors to feel like they were just lucky to have the jobs that they had, and they didn't want anybody like asking for a raise or anything like that.
Exactly what they were doing to us. That's crazy.
We were, even though our show was the highest rated show on E for the entire 5 seasons that we were on Girls Next Door, we were always treated like the redheaded stepchildren, kind of. No offense to redheads. It's just an expression.
Well, back to the slip and slides. They were dangerous, I think. Like, I think Brian had every right to be concerned that somebody was going to get hurt on those.
I'm honestly surprised they let us do it.
Me too.
And I did get hurt the first time I tried, which was when we were prepping for your birthday party filming the pilot. There were like stakes in the ground to hold the tarps down, and I rammed my butt cheek on one of those stakes, and I had this huge, crazy bruise.
I remember the bruise. It was massive.
But I hit it because I didn't want to stop the slip and slide.
But like, we hit that plastic tarp at such force, with such momentum. I mean, it just was like bam at the end. And you say it later on, like you slide up like you say it in commentary, like you slide up like a half pipe, and we totally did. And I remember that it did come loose a few times, and they had to put like pool chair cushions behind it to help also like stabilize it and stuff. Like it was, and I remember too, like if you came off the side a little bit, you'd get like a grass burn down your leg and stuff. But they were too much fun to stop.
Exactly. And just to make it clear, when I said I hid my bruise so we could still do it, I did say something to the staff about the stakes, because I forget what they did, but they did something so people wouldn't hit the stakes anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure they just
remember what it was.
Punched them in further.
Yeah, or used like a different kind or something.
But like, and I also want to say too, like if that tarp were to have come out at the end, there was like a drop off and then a cement sidewalk and then an even bigger drop off, like a 10-foot drop off into the driveway.
Yeah,
like,
so it would have been brutal.
Yeah, like
sliding.
If you kept sliding and then started rolling and went right off, like it could be deadly.
Yeah, for sure. And then we'll get into the 4th of July party more in the end of the episode, but 4th of July party we filmed for the show since we were filming that summer of 2005, and so that's a big part of this, the theme of this episode. The whole theme is just like patriotic and 4th of July and your brother in the military and Operation Playmate and all that stuff. And they show a few clips from 4th of July, and you'll see our friend Stacy Burke later in the episode, a lot in the clips. And I also noticed they showed Bill Maher in the clips.
Oh, I saw it too. I wrote down a list of all the people they showed. But you know what? I know you said that this one had really good storytelling. And this isn't a knock on the storytelling, but I did find it weird that they were like doing the slip and slide, and then they like cut to the party, but then it's not the party yet. Then they cut to like me going to see my brother and stuff, and then they cut back to the party later, and I'm thinking that's a weird way of doing it.
Yeah, that is a good point. It's like they were trying to establish atmosphere without really giving a reason for it, because I didn't even know where to fit it in my notes, because I'm like, okay, 4th of July party, but I feel like I shouldn't really talk about it until we get later into the episode.
Right, because it's kind of what caps it all off at the end, but yet they sneak portions of it in earlier, and I'm like, wait, wait, I'm at the 4th of July party, but now I'm going to visit my brother. Like, it doesn't make sense as far as the way they put this episode together.
Yeah, you're right. That is a good point.
It was weird because I felt like Kendra was never really into the slip and slides that much. Did you ever get that feeling? And I see her go down. They show her going down one time, but like they show us going down multiple times. And I just remember feeling at the time too that she wasn't that into it. And I thought that was really weird because she always pushes herself, and the show pushed her as the sporty and the active one and stuff. So you would think she'd want to be the first one down the slides and think that was like totally her thing. But it just wasn't. And I mean, there's no hate for that. Like, if you don't like slip and slides and that's not your thing, that's fine. It's just
an interesting observation.
Yeah, and I just always thought it was really weird. And then when I was rewatching this episode, she says in her commentary, I would rather have put snow on that hill and go tubing, and which I'd actually looked into for your birthday. I talked about this on commentary. For your Winter Wonderland birthday that didn't get shown but was amazing. I looked into putting snow on that hill and doing tubing, and it was like $8,000 or something like that. And Hef was like, no, we're not doing it. So, and I say in the commentary that I already looked into it, but it's too expensive. But I thought that was an interesting comment because then if you fast forward, and I know we're not there yet, but if you fast forward to like, I think it's season 4 when we do the snow.
Season 3. I think that's where Kevin got that idea, was you were saying you really wanted the snow.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. But when we do the snow and we do tubing, Kendra refused to come out. Which we're going to get to.
Yeah.
But I just think it's interesting that
she came out for like a minute when we had the snow, but she wasn't
We'll get into it, but it wasn't voluntarily.
You know what I noticed too is I think it's like a deflection thing with her because she is really into sports and like doing sports and stuff, but she wasn't really a daredevil. And again, you guys, this is fine. Like, I'm not hating when I say this. Like, to all you sensitive folks out there, I'm not hating. Like, if you're not a daredevil, great, you're preserving your face. But I always felt like, I mean, as far as, niche slip and slide, I was super into that, but I always felt like things in general, you were more of like the daredevil for like trapeze and stuff like that. And Kendra's more sports, but if it was kind of like a daredevil thing, she wasn't really into it. But I think maybe she felt like she had to live up to that because it went with the sporty vibe. So she would deflect by saying things like, oh no, if it was a snowboarding thing, I would have done that. And later on, there's an episode, it's the trapeze. When you take her trapeze to trapezing, I don't know what the verb for that is, but trapezing. She, tries it, doesn't like it, she's too scared of heights and stuff, and she goes, well, you know, if it was sports or something else, like there's always the deflection, like, no, I mean, I do this. So I think it's more that, like deflecting rather than really wanting it to be a snowboarding thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and then the next scene, again, they like cut to the 4th of July party, and it's Kendra's butt walking down, and in commentary, you make a comment that says, I know it's not my butt, because if it was, it would have had cellulite on it. But I look at the photos of us in our bikinis and our everything, like barely dressed outfits, and I feel like we all look really good.
We do, and I think that's just a reflection of how we were made to feel. Like, I had massive body dysmorphia at that place. I probably still have it left over. And I remember being made to feel, and we can get into this more when we get into like a more body image heavy episode, because there are some coming up. I was always made to feel that because Kendra was like skinnier, that she was like the only one with a good body. Did you ever feel like that?
Yes. And I always felt like of the 3, they wanted me to be the heavy one and the most out of shape.
No, they totally did you dirty that way. And I don't know who I felt that pressure from necessarily, if it was like just the people at the mansion and what they would comment on, or fans of the show. But I always felt like because Kendra was maybe like 5 pounds lighter than us and a little less curvier, I always felt like everybody thought she had the best body and we were like slobs. And I don't feel like that looking at the footage. Like, I feel like I look fucking hot in this footage. But back then I was like, I'm full of cellulite. And I remember making a comment in some interview that people would pick up a lot and like quote me on, where it's me saying like, I'll always be a curvy girl. And I don't think anyone would really define me as curvy by today's standards. But back then I felt like I had to apologize for being quote unquote bigger, which is insanity.
Right. Well, I definitely felt like I was the curvy girl.
Yeah.
Like,
it's insanity, and just a testament to what the culture was like, what the body standards were like, what the culture and body standards were like at the mansion.
Yeah. It's crazy. But I do want to talk about our outfits because I think that they were cute.
I've got in my notes too.
Yeah.
And you know what I was thinking about with the outfits? We're both extremely themed in these. You have I was going to say 4th of July, a Statue of Liberty outfit. I have a Playboy bunny costume, which was based on the bunny costumes they would wear at like the Jamaica resort. They would have bunnies that worked at the pool. So it would be like a 60s cut bikini with like the tail and the ears and the cuffs and collar and stuff. And I loved it. It was one of my favorite things to wear. But obviously after a while, not the most comfortable. You have the tail that's getting sopping wet and it's like dragging your pants down.
They weren't meant for slip and slides.
I know, exactly. And then you have like the ears would get kind of uncomfortable because they were like a tight headband. And I love dressing themed and stuff, but also when I was watching this episode, it kind of jogged my memory a little bit. And it made me kind of realize looking back that I put more pressure on myself to dress themed and dress as something that really encapsulated the event, because I felt like if I did, and I don't even know if I realized I was doing this at the time, it's just something looking back I think played a part. I felt like if I really was dressed in a way that encapsulated the event, the chance of my picture being used in like World of Playboy or for some other thing was higher. And that might sound dumb, like why the fuck would you care if you were on the social page in Playboy? But having your picture used for something like that, or having Hef use the picture for something, or having him like blow the picture up and put it in the hallway where he had all the pictures. It was validation, but it was also one of the very few ways that I ever felt seen at that place, because I always felt less than. I felt like I was 1/7 of a person or 1/3 of a person when it was just 3 girlfriends, and there was just no validation or no being seen really, which I know might sound weird to an outsider because they're like, oh, you're on a reality show, of course you're seen. But after years and years of living there as one of many girlfriends and being made to feel like you're totally inconsequential and just so lucky to even be there, those were the things that made me feel seen.
Well, and as a reminder, like, the world might think we were being seen, but we didn't feel like we were being seen because we just didn't know what was going on in the world.
Exactly.
Like, we did not know how popular the show was. We did not know how famous we were becoming. We did not know any of that. So we saw the message boards. We knew there was, some things going on. Obviously, we're on TV, but at the same time, we were not aware of the success of the show.
Not at all.
Because we're in that bubble.
Yeah.
But as far as dressing themed, that is something that I took to another level even before the mansion.
Uh-huh.
So for me, it wasn't about getting in the photos, although that's a great perk,
It was nice when it happened.
Yeah, and you feel like you're sort of rewarded for all this time and effort that you put into something, and that somebody's noticing and thinks it's cool too. And the mansion was just an amazing outlet. It's one of the things I miss the most about it. It was an amazing outlet to be creative like that with the outfits and just go crazy with it. And no one was going to, well, there might have been people judging me, but I felt like I wasn't being judged. Like, yeah. I mean, definitely there were people judging, but like I felt like I could do it, and they were the weird ones for not doing it.
Yeah. It definitely gave you a lot of excuses to think of a fun idea of something to wear that you don't necessarily get in the real world, especially back then. Like now, cosplay is such a thing, and people will do it just for social media. It's like a different world now. But back in the 2000s, like, Halloween was your only time to dress up, but not for us. Not for us. We found excuses.
And there were so many. Like, I would dress up for movie nights, too. Like, if there was a movie night and I thought it had a good theme, it was like a Western, like I was dressed country girl. If it was like whatever, like I was dressing up to try and theme with the movie. Even if it was just a Sunday night movie, we're watching Pirates of the Caribbean, I'm down there as a pirate.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Like,
it was so fun. So where did you get that, I keep wanting to call it the 4th of July costume, the Statue of Liberty costume?
I actually had it made. I had it made for an event that I was doing before I moved into the mansion. It was a Vans event, and we were doing a promo, and I got 2 of them made me, one for me and one for my friend, and we were like passing out stickers and like just doing a promotion at this Vans event underneath I think it was the Bay Bridge. in San Francisco. So it was awesome.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, and everybody would ask us our name. They're like, "Oh, what are your guys' names?" And we would say, "I'm Justice and she's Liberty." And
I like
we would go
those
back and
names.
forth,
That's
and they were like,
cute.
"Shut up, you lie." And we're like, "No, I swear, I'm Justice, she's Liberty," or "I'm Liberty and that's Justice." And they were like, "What?"
That's so funny. It's a precursor to the Are You the Winner of the Miss Statue of Liberty contest?
It is.
There was this trip we did to New York. We've talked about it before in 2003 where me, Bridget, and Crystal Camden, we were all wearing like big pink coats, and we got those foam Statue of Liberty crowns that they sell down by the Statue of Liberty.
Total tourist thing.
Yeah, and we wore it like ice skating in Rockefeller Center, and everybody was like, "What are you guys doing?" Because I swear, back then it was weird to wear shit like that. Like, not that tourists weren't buying it, but like social media wasn't a thing. People weren't doing photo ops, but we were there with Hef's personal photographer, trying to look as corny as we could because we love that. And people were like, "Are you contestants in the Miss Statue of Liberty contest?" Like, they were just like, "What are you guys doing?" Because I felt like back then, even 3 girls in pink coats was weird for New York.
It was. I felt like we were the only ones in any kind of color.
100%.
Like, everywhere we went, everybody was like, and blonde.
Yeah.
Like, crazy blonde, pink, Statue of Liberty crowns. Everybody was like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Like,
they thought we had to be
everybody was-
doing like some particular publicity stunt or something like that, which we were, but just for our own minds.
Yeah, we were just on
Nothing-
vacation,
nothing
that's
else.
all.
Yeah.
So this is where I have all the celebs. What's the guy from Robot Chicken?
Seth Green.
Oh yeah, Seth Green was
Yeah.
there. I was like, what's that guy's name? They flashed to Vern Troyer, and like you said, Bill Maher.
Yeah.
And then they show Audra and The Bachelor.
Oh my God, I forgot. Wasn't Audra dating the guy who was the Bachelor? For a
Yeah,
minute?
but I can't remember what Bachelor it is, but I recognize him as a Bachelor.
There have been so many Bachelors.
Yeah. But he was like the current one, or the one that
Yeah.
had just like
The one
gotten
that
off a season.
Yeah, the one that everybody knew at the time.
Mm-hmm. And what year was this? This would have been 2005, right?
Uh-huh.
So whoever that Bachelor was.
All you Bachelor Nation people out there,
Right.
you'll know.
I watched The Bachelor now, but I didn't start watching it until like way later.
I know nothing about The Bachelor except that my friend Kelty was on it for a minute, and also one time a contestant showed up in a sloth outfit, which I'm so rabidly obsessed with, and I feel like she's my soulmate.
I don't know if I saw that episode.
It was only like maybe 5 years ago or something. She fully showed up in a head to toe like sloth outfit.
If it was 5 years ago, I should have seen it because I feel like I've been watching since like 5 years ago about.
Maybe it was longer and I'm just condensing time in my mind, but
Maybe.
I love it.
But then they also show some playmates. I see Sarah Underwood and Jillian.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Anastasia and Stacy are there.
Uh-huh.
They don't introduce them still. They don't like talk about them yet, but they're there in scenes.
Wait, was Anastasia not introduced when you got Wednesday?
Yeah, but I mean
Okay.
like they don't like
They're not
say
thirding them.
yeah, they don't put a name underneath her or Stacy or anybody.
I'm so curious because I forget, even from the last time I watched the episode, what Stacy's first episode she's lower thirded in.
I don't
I'm sure
know.
it's coming up soon.
I don't know because I'm only literally on this one, so I
Uh-huh.
haven't even seen the next one yet, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would have guessed it was this one, but it wasn't.
And I spotted an open mouth kiss.
Oh, I know, you guys. So I'm just minding my day. All of a sudden I get a text from Bridget, and it's a screenshot of me and Hef leaning in for a kiss, and it's the open mouth peck that I've talked about before, which I'm so weirded out about because I just didn't notice it at the time, and I didn't even notice it the first couple times I've watched this show. And now that I've noticed it, I can't unsee it, and it's weird. It's very frog-like.
It was a total accident. I was watching the episode and I was making notes and I paused it so I could make a note about like what playmates I saw there, and it paused on this. And I was like, oh, wait, I gotta take a picture of that and send it to Holly.
It's so funny.
But I do love the jazz band, and I remember that there had not been a jazz band like previously at 4th of July. And I feel like I may have had something to do with this, and maybe you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but like I really enjoyed the jazz festival and like the handkerchief thing and stuff. And I was telling Hef, we should do that at 4th of July. Like, wouldn't it be so fun to have that at 4th of July? And the next thing I know, they were at 4th of July. Like, I didn't have anything like other than planting the seed, but like
yeah, no, it probably was your idea because I don't remember how it came about, but it was really cool. They had this band called the Preservation Hall Jazz Band, and they would play like retro, kind of like 1920s ish jazz, and we'd all get the white napkins and like whirl them around in the air because I guess that was the thing. I don't know if like that's a jazz thing or a thing for them, but
like a conga line thing.
Yeah, and it was just a really fun atmosphere. I love that kind of music because for me it's very like Disneyland nostalgic.
I was just gonna say that for those that don't know, it's very Disneyland music. Like
yeah, like Hef would always ask me because I would love to listen to a lot of the same jazz he liked, like 1920s jazz, and he's like, that's so weird because you're so young, like why do you like that? And I'm like, it's because it reminds me of Disneyland, and that's what I grew up with, and that's just what like makes me happy on like a random day.
Yeah.
And my son even now, like I put on the 40 station in the car sometimes and be like, Mom, you're listening to Disneyland music. Like he thinks that's what it is.
So then it goes into Operation Playmate.
Which we should talk about what that is so people know what it is. So Operation Playmate was a program that Playboy started in the 90s when we were in the Gulf War, and it was a correspondence program with the troops. So they printed out all these headshots for all these Playmates that would say Operation Playmate at the bottom of the headshots, and Playmates would sign them, and there would be like a email address where any soldier could write to, and like a Playmate would answer them, and they would find out who their favorite Playmate was, and they'd get that headshot signed and send it to them. And then sometimes we would do extra things, like you'll see later in the episode, we do like a cookie night where we bake cookies and put them in the Tupperware and send them off and things like that. And also they have these little military bunny costumes that were from the Playboy Club in the 80s, because they used to do themed bunny costumes in the 80s. We can get to that later. And they used those because they represented each branch of the military. They used that for it. But one thing I want to say about Operation Playmate too is, so this program had been going since the 90s, and there was one day, I forget where we were going, but we were driving somewhere in the limo, and I was telling Hef, it was right around the time we started fostering those bunnies, actual real bunnies, for you guys who haven't listened to the podcast before, not Playmate bunnies. But we were fostering these rabbits, and I was telling Hef that I wanted to start like some kind of charity program, and maybe like Playmates could get involved for like rescuing animals. And the reason I wanted to do that was because I'd been living at the mansion for like 3 or 4 years at that point, and I don't know about you, Bridget, but I just felt like I did not have any purpose being there. And I think that's one of the reasons we both wanted to do the tours, other than it was fun to give tours, is I wanted to feel like I had some kind of purpose. I just felt like I'd gotten into this situation over my head. I wasn't making any progress in my life or going anywhere. I felt dumb just being one of Hef's girlfriends. I wanted to be more than just like a sex object. I wanted some kind of purpose. So we started giving the tours, and I was trying to look for some kind of charity thing to do. And Hef was like, well, instead of like starting a whole new thing with the animals, why don't you take over Operation Playmate? Because I need someone to do that. But at the time, Playboy had an employee who was, I forget what department she came from. She was doing probably like promotions or marketing or something. So they were happy to find somebody else to do it, you know, free of charge. So they could free that person up to do their actual job. So I took it over. I used the computer that was like out in the guest house. That was where all the emails came to, so I answered those emails. I would get like all the headshots signed from the Playmates and get them mailed out and everything. And the reason I'm telling you guys all this is because they don't tell you in the show. And that annoys me so bad looking back on it, because it just cuts to us doing something for Operation Playmate. And I'm talking a little bit about what Operation Playmate is, but you can hear it's Frank invited and it's cut this way. And looking back, it pisses me off. At the time, I didn't care because Operation Playmate was never something I wanted to do to get credit for. Like, I was never, like, there's no credits in Playboy that says this is who does Operation Playmate. Like, nobody ever knows. It's like a secret thing. I was just doing it because I wanted to feel like I had some kind of purpose. And even back then, like, on the commentary, I'm not, like, jumping in going, Operation Playmate's my thing. I do it every week. I don't know why you didn't say, Kevin. Like, I'm not even at that point trying to get noticed for it. But looking back just in the context of how they take any ounce of personality or interest away from me, like they don't, like they go out of their way to say what like you and Kendra are studying in school, but they don't mention I'm in school. They don't mention any of my interests. They take away the fact that I'm the one doing Operation Playmate and just make it look like I'm just showing up on a random day and participating just like everybody else. Like, but I won't talk too long about it because I feel like I've talked about this ad infinitum on other episodes, but it annoys me so bad. And if there was one question I could ask Kevin about the show, I'm like, why did you not let me have any personality or interest or responsibility? Because it does not benefit the show to have one of your main characters be completely flat and cardboard. It's just such a mystery to me. And I feel like it's obvious they were doing it on purpose because you can even hear I'm Frankenbited in this episode. So I don't know why they did that, but Operation Playmate was what I did. It was my responsibility. And all you guys helped too. Like, you were always super helpful with it, and Playmates would show up and you guys would be like so great and so giving of your time. And I know it was an important cause to you too because your brother and everything.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's something that we would have talked about probably. I don't remember if this specific thing was something we talked about, like in my room kind of thing, like venting about things. But I definitely remember us venting about stuff like that in my room, like to ourselves, like how if we came up with an idea for something, we never got credit for anything. And I don't even know what kind of credit that would be, but like we just felt like our ideas were like the only thing we had that was like that helped make us like
feel like people.
Yeah, have something going on.
Yeah.
And then so much would happen. There's another thing that's about to happen in a second that I'm going to tell you that I did and didn't get credit for either in this, but like there was so much of that, and I just felt like, and that's why like I hold on so strongly to my ideas, and like I get so pissed when like someone steals it or like does it, because I'm just like, no, it's all I have. And Nick's like, what's the big deal? And I'm like, no, it's all I have. You don't understand. Like, that's what sets people apart. That's what makes them different. That's why we were different.
Yeah, and for years living in that situation, that really was all we had. And it goes beyond just stuff you see on TV too. It was like behind the scenes of the show, because Kevin, the producer, was what I call a regurgitator. Like, we would have a meeting and he would be like, so what are you girls doing? What do you want to film? And we would throw stuff out there. And sometimes I would say, like, I'd give an idea and he'd be like, snore, boring.
Snore.
But then, like, he would always say that. Like, if he didn't like one of our ideas, he'd be like, he'd sit back and he'd go, snore. But mark my words, a month later, we'd be in our next meeting and he'd be like, oh, I know what we're going to do, as if it's the best idea either. And it would be that same thing I told him about in the last meeting that he said was a snore.
You guys, I would come in with like a 3-wing binder, like one of those spiral notebooks, that's what it is, and like lists and lists of notes. And as I would tell him about it in our lunch, I would check them off. Okay, I told him about this, I told him I want to do this, I told him I want to do that. And it was from the tiniest things to the biggest, grandest ideas, just hoping something might get picked up.
I'm curious, and this might be something you'd have to think about, you might not know off the top of your head, but was there ever an idea on the show you really wanted to do and never got to do?
Oh gosh, probably. I'd have to really look at my notes from back then, because I remember I would have some grand things. I'd be like, I'm just going to put this in there and see what happens. But I know I wanted to be in charge of one of the parties and decorate, and I think they let me do that to an extent later on.
With the Arabian Nights a little bit?
A little bit.
I remember that too. I remember you bringing that up now that you mention it.
But then even after I left, like, I wanted to come and like redo the Halloween party. Like, not the whole thing, because I thought it was pretty amazing, but like the decorations, I felt like they just were on kind of repeats.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like go in and give it like a theme. And that year, I think I wanted to do like a very like red velvet, like dark,
Dracula,
like vampire.
that'd be
Yeah.
so cool.
With like the chandeliers and stuff.
I remember
the
you saying
flicker
that, now that you
flames.
mention it.
Like, I wanted to give it a real feel.
Yeah.
There, you know? But yeah. That's what comes to mind first, but I know there was other things. Let's talk about the military bunny costumes, because they are so cute, and I thought, like, you guys, I was dying to wear this costume. Like, I was so excited. I felt so honored to wear it, not only because it's a bunny costume, which obviously I feel like is a certain level of prestige for that, but like the military ones, there was only 4 of them, right?
Yeah, there was one that represented each branch of the military. Should we get into a little bit of like what is the bunny costume and like the origin of that, just like a little bit? Before we get too much into the bunny costume, I want to say you look really pretty in your interview in this episode.
Oh, thank you.
You just have like a very even tan. And also, I asked you in the commentary if you have a cold, because it sounds like you have a cold, but it was probably because you were emotional talking about your brother, I would think.
Oh, probably.
I look very glazed in my interview. glazed and confused.
Oh.
But that's nothing new.
So, the next scene is like me talking about going to visit my brother and how excited I am because I'm going to take him one of these care packages that we made for the troops directly to him at Fort Bragg. That's where he was stationed in North Carolina. And at that time, he had done 2 tours in Iraq and 1 tour in Afghanistan. He went on to stay in the military longer and do more, but that's where we're at this point. And so just for a little backstory on my brother, he was going to school, about to go to school for something totally different. He was going to do makeup special effects for like movies and TV and stuff. That's what he wanted to do. He just got accepted to the Tom Savini School of like makeup special effects, which is amazing. I took him to orientation in Pennsylvania. We went together, met Tom Savini, all that good stuff. That's what he was going to do. He came home. School started in the fall, so he came home for a little bit. There was some time in between, and then 9/11 happened, and he dropped everything and went and just joined the Army. And so that's where he is at this point. So this is 2005 now, so he's still in the Army. And I was really excited to go and visit him because he, at this point, was going to Army, I think he was like working on his Army Ranger, either that or Airborne. I don't know how this all works, but he was Army Ranger 82nd Airborne. So at some point he did all of those things too. And I also talked to him when I was watching this episode, just to kind of like try and refresh my memory, like where he was and like what happened when we were there and stuff like that. See if he remembered anything I didn't remember and stuff. And I was like, oh wait, we have to have Eddie on for a podcast.
Absolutely. When do you want to bring him on?
Maybe, I forget when he actually comes to visit the mansion. Is that like really far?
Season 4, yeah.
Oh.
It's a long way off.
Oh, well maybe he can come on sooner too,
Yeah.
and then we can go back and talk to him again later. But yeah, he had some fun stories, and I wrote them down, so I'll talk about them in this episode and stuff, but maybe we can have him on as an actual guest too.
Yeah, that would be fun.
And then the next thing I have on here is that Kendra walks down to the dining room. There's a girl sitting at the dining room table. So the dining room table is all set and ready for the Operation Playmate Cookie Night. Like the table's covered in plastic because they know we're going to be messy. There's like headshots and pins sitting around. And Kendra walks down there, and there was a girl, and it's so fast. Maybe I know who it is, but I was like, wait, who is that person? And I tried to slow it down, and I didn't recognize who it was. It could have just been a random who was like testing.
That's so weird because I didn't notice. I'm curious now.
It was like a brunette, and Kendra walks down. She's the only one that girl is the only one sitting in the dining room, and Kendra makes this big scene, like, oh, I forget what she even says. Yeah, and I felt like it was a very staged scene. Like they were like, you have to go down and do something.
Probably. Yeah.
And I noticed that she had, and this was very much the style, this is not talking crap, I noticed that she had not only whale tail, but the whole sides of her underwear were like 3 inches above her pants.
Yeah.
Her pants were like so far down. I was like, well, that is a look.
That's a style for sure.
Yeah, but I didn't know who that girl was.
Interesting.
And then not in commentary, but in the interview, Kendra says, they're in Iraq fighting, and maybe that one cookie brings a smile to their face. And I was like, I don't know about that. Cut to Playboy Studio West.
Yeah, so I go down to the Playboy Studio West. I always feel funny calling things West, like Playboy Mansion West.
Well, they're probably wondering why it's West. It's for the same reason as Playboy Mansion West.
Yeah, because the original studio was in Chicago. So at one time when they had 2 studios going, there was like Playboy Studio West. So I go down there to meet up with Pat Lacey, who is the head of Playmate Promotions, and she helped me a lot with Operation Playmate because she was always my go-to as far as trying to get all the Playmates to sign the headshots if the Playmates weren't, people who were easily accessible to me for whatever reason. And the reason I'm just rolling up to her office so casually and we seem to know each other is because I worked with her regularly on Operation Playmate, but they don't say that. They don't say that that's anything I do or spend time doing. And my other observation about this scene is I am so skinny and sickly looking. I feel like I look like I'm about ready to die.
I noticed that you looked really skinny, too.
It was bad. Like, it's alarming in hindsight. Like, obviously I made it through, I'm still here, I'm still alive. But like, I look back and just knowing myself, I'm like, was I okay? Because I look like I'm about ready to tip over. So
Yeah.
that was weird.
Well, at this time, we're probably stressing out about our pictorial that we're about to shoot, too.
Stressing out about the pictorial, stressing out about just the show in general and how it's going to be perceived and just everything.
Yeah. What did we say that Pat Lacey is known as the Bunny Mom?
Yeah, so, you know, Pat Lacey was the head of Playmate Promotions, and at the time, the only thing they were using bunny costumes for was Playmates would wear them for certain promotions, or like if they were hired to work a party. So then Pat Lacey was known as the Bunny Mother, because anytime they had a Playboy club, there was a woman who worked there who was like the Bunny Mother, who would kind of like coordinate everything. And was Pat Lacey a bunny mother at a club back in the day?
I
don't
feel like
remember.
she was.
Probably.
I feel like she was, but I'm not positive. But I do know that she wrote a book, and I'm blanking on what the name is right now. Maybe we could Google it before this episode's over and tell everybody.
What? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, she wrote a book not that long ago.
Where's my phone? I want to look it up.
I don't know, but I have mine right here. Okay, so Pat Lacey's book is called The Black Bunny Hop, and its description is: The Black Bunny Hop is the story of Pat Lacey, whose Playboy career spanned the entire organization, including Bunny, Jet Bunny, Bunny Mother, and coordinator of Playmate Promotions. Pat Lacey rejected what the world told her to be and became what she was born to be, a woman on the front lines of the 20th century cultural revolution. She takes you behind the scenes of the Playboy organization and the exciting world of being a Playboy bunny. Speaking of that, though, in this next scene, they show the seamstress, Jeannie, or Jeannie? I think it was Jeannie, right?
I call her Jean in the commentary, but I feel like it was Jeannie.
I think it was Jeannie. And she was the seamstress for the bunny costumes. But you know all about the original creator, Zelda.
Yeah, the way the bunny costume originated was Hef and his promotional director, Victor Lowndes, were talking about opening the clubs and how should the waitresses be dressed. And Victor came up with the idea for the bunny costume. And the first person to model one was Hef's girlfriend at the time, Cynthia Maddox, who was Eric Petitia's mom, who we knew Eric and hung out with him. And you see a really quick black and white clip of her in this episode. And she's the one wearing a bunny costume that kind of looks like a Santa outfit. You can't tell what color it is because it's black and white, but it has like white fur on the top. So that was like the first mock-up of a bunny costume. So Cynthia's mother sewed the first mock-up, but the woman who made the first real bunny costume as we know it today was a woman named Zelda Wynn Valdez, who was a really famous black seamstress in New York City, and she made really amazing gowns for like Lena Horne and Ella Fitzgerald and people like that. And the bunny costume, I love my bunny costumes and I hang on to them because I think they're such an important part of fashion history and just the way they're created and just like the quality of the design. And like, it's not like a corset, like a lace-up corset, but it has this boning in it and the way it zips up and just everything about the way they're made is just fascinating to me. So she was the one who really engineered the bunny costume.
Yeah, and speaking of the way they fit, like we're going to get into it later when they show Audra getting into the bunny costume, but this was a struggle for every bunny costume, and it was they were made this way on purpose. They were meant to suck you in and lift you up. So like you wanted everything to be sucked in and your boobs up and out.
Yeah, it was kind of insane the way they worked.
And the zipper on the back is like an industrial zipper. It's like a big, fat,
the
giant one.
Big metal zipper.
It has
wasn't
to
like,
be.
Yeah, exactly.
So in this scene, it like switches. It like doesn't. Have you noticed that it goes back and forth between we're at Playboy West and then we're at the bunny house?
Yeah, I was even kind of confused looking back at my notes. I'm like, okay, so what is this segue? Because it shows me at the office with Lacey and then it flashes over to the bunny house, the house across the street from the mansion, where I'm being fitted for a hot pink bunny costume. And Cara Monaco was over there, who was a newer Playmate at the time, and she was getting fitted for a bunny costume. So it's filming
and
us
Jillian too.
there, yeah, with Jillian. So you get to see a little bit of the bunny house and what it looked like. And another thing, I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but when Hef bought that house and we came up with the idea to have girls stay over there, we started calling it the Bunny House, and he was always super grumpy with us about it, and he's like, no, it's called the Playmate House. Those aren't bunnies that are living over there, it's playmates. But I just didn't think that sounded as cute as like, and it didn't roll off the tongue as easily as the Bunny House. But he would always get snappish with me when I would forget and call it the Bunny House. But then cut to years later after we leave, Kevin does a pilot about women who live at that house called the Bunny House. And he was fully supportive of the show being called that, but anytime I said the Bunny House, I got the snap.
Well,
Rude.
the Bunny House, just like you said, it rolls off your tongue easier. It kind of is what it is. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it is the Bunny House. And everyone still calls it the Bunny House.
Yeah, totally.
Most people, anyway.
So you get to see a little bit of that. You see Kara in one of the bedrooms, so that's what the bedrooms look like. They were all painted really bright colors and stuff.
Yeah. Do we need to talk about the difference between, I think we did this already, but like, it kind of comes up in this a little bit, the difference between a bunny and a playmate?
Well, it was interesting that Hef was so anti it being called the Bunny House because playmates lived there, because most of those playmates probably were also fitted for a bunny costume,
Yeah.
which was at the time the current day version of what a bunny would have been. Because back in the day, of course, a bunny was a woman who worked at the Playboy clubs, and sometimes that overlapped with being a playmate, sometimes not. But there weren't any Playboy clubs at that time, so a bunny was a playmate who wore a bunny costume.
Yeah, and
or
if
us
you,
who wore a bunny costume.
if you were living at that house, you were most likely doing a lot of promotions, because that's why you would be invited to come and live there, because you needed to be in LA a lot to do all these promotions. So most likely you were fitted for a bunny costume, most likely you were living at the Bunny House.
Absolutely. And I mentioned the bunny manual at some
Yes.
point because we're talking about all the etiquette involved with being a bunny. And I was working on this show recently called The Playboy Murders, and they had me read aloud some stuff from the bunny manual. And I've heard some crazy stories about bunny rules, like some of it was mentioned on Secrets of Playboy by women who worked as bunny mothers who felt like they had to fire girls for reasons they didn't like and things like that. The manual itself, like when I was recording the Playboy Murders and talking about it with the producers and stuff, I was like, you know what's crazy is these rules sound crazy to some people, but to me they don't sound so crazy, because even in Vegas now, I mean, the rules aren't as strict as it would have been for a Playboy bunny, but like if you're working as a bottle girl in Vegas, there's so many rules about like you have to come with a perfect manicure and you have to look this way and your nails have to be this color. Like there's all these, brand consistency guidelines that have to do with the way you look. So a lot of it didn't seem too crazy for me, but some of the rules I feel like were a little over the top and controlling. I mean, some of them make sense. Like there was a stance. You were supposed to stand with like one of your knees bent a little bit in front of the other, so that way you don't look sloppy, like you're not standing there with like a camel toe.
Right.
Which we show in this episode.
Well, it does look weird if you don't stand right in it. Like
It does.
the
It looks
crotch
sloppy.
area doesn't look good.
And you weren't supposed to sit down on the job. You're supposed to kind of perch up against something. And there was this thing called the bunny dip, which was kind of this like bending backwards way of setting a drink down on a table. Because if you're to lean forward and set a drink down on the table
Your boobs
in
are
a
in the
bunny
face.
costume, your boobs are probably going to fall out. It might look a little bit vulgar. I don't know. But where was I going with this? Oh, the reason I feel kind of yucky about some of the bunny rules is because of something that happens in an episode in season 2 where I'm dressed in a bunny costume and somebody tells me to do the bunny dip. I forget who, so I do it. And Keith, Hef's brother, jumps up, and he was the one who trained the bunnies at the club in the original days. And I always really liked Keith, never thought he was creepy, but this kind of moment, it made me feel yucky at the time. He's like, no, you're doing it wrong. And it's not a fucking science, the bunny dip. Like, I wasn't really doing it. He's like, no, you have to thrust your hips forward a little bit. And he like moves my hips. And it just, something about that felt so yucky to me. I still to this day don't feel like I was doing it wrong. I feel like it's kind of an extra rule so men can come in and be like nitpicky on these women. And something felt gross about being told to like thrust my hips forward. I just can't explain. Like, it doesn't sound like that big of a deal when I talk about it, but I can't explain how yucky it made me feel in the moment. And even when I rewatched that episode, and the way it felt to me, even rewatching the episode and in the moment, is it felt like one of those moments where a man is telling you, oh, you stupid girl. you can't even do this right. So it felt gross to me.
Yeah. Well, I think most people would be surprised to know there is a bunny manual.
Yeah, with a lot of different rules and things you can do and things you can't do. And
So I was really surprised when they showed it in this episode, and I was like, oh my god, that's, amazing that they're talking about it in here, because that gives us something really good to talk about, because there was the bunny stance, the bunny perch, the bunny dip. And about those rules too, I will say that Nick's mom was a Playboy bunny. She worked at the LA club, the Century City Club, I believe. And she had to get like a little, I think it was like a little mole removed off her leg or something like that. And so she had a little Band-Aid, and then she had her nylons on and stuff. They sent her home because she had a Band-Aid on her leg underneath her nylons.
First of all, not only is that incredibly nitpicky, but it's like a medical thing. Like, I don't think you'd be allowed to send somebody home for that these days.
Yeah, she has a bunch of stories, and she said that like men used to come in and want to like just rub their feet. They're like, "Oh, you've been wearing those heels all day. Let me just rub your feet. It must really hurt and stuff." And she said girls would make extra money by letting men rub their feet.
We should have her come on and tell bunny stories.
I know, right?
That would be funny. Yeah, when I was reading the bunny manual for the Playboy murders, that was one of the sections I was reading. For those of you who are watching this on Patreon, we're back. We took a break in between this episode to film with Stacy, or record with Stacy. So we're back, finishing up episode 6. So where did we leave off? Bridget, do you want to tell us about the bunny hop?
Yeah, we were talking about the bunny hop, and I was saying that like Ray Anthony wrote the song, and there's a cute little dance that goes with it that you guys were demonstrating in this episode.
Yeah, it's very 1940s, 1950s, and it was a cute little Easter egg for the producer to put in there because Hef's friend wrote the song. But I will say, as we get further down the line, he keeps putting that Easter egg in there to the point where by the time we're on season 4, we're overdoing the bunny hop.
Really? Because I don't remember it being used a lot, and when I saw it in this, I was like, oh, that's cute that they added that.
Yeah, I just think we were over it by the time we did it in Jamaica. We just felt like it was too much of like a forced thing at that point because we were talking about it in commentary.
So the next scene is in the pantry, and it's Kendra and Destiny.
Wait, before that, you know what brought back memories when I listened to the commentary of this? It was one of those things where you completely forgot about it, but then you're reminded and it all comes flooding back, is I was singing a song in the commentary that I made up for Ray Anthony called I Want to Touch All the Girls.
Wait, I thought I wrote that in my notes. Did it happen right now?
Well, I think it probably happened during the bunny hop, because that's the only time we would have referenced Ray, I think.
Oh, I swear I wrote that down in my notes, but maybe I forgot to put them in my real notes.
And I had forgotten that I made up that song for him, completely forgotten. But the song I didn't forget is I also made up a song for Dickie Van.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I named that song, but I still to this day remember the words of the song I made up for Dickie Van.
So do I.
Yeah. And I'm not very picky when it comes to getting sticky. Want a licky?
I do remember that song.
There's some Grammy Award-winning content there, guys.
Yeah. And then you should say your Ray Anthony song for people who don't get commentary.
Oh, it was like,
I want to touch all the girls
with my hands in their pants. I want to touch all the girls. I'm
when they're
sliding
doing
when
my
I
dance
or something like that. I don't remember how that one went because I'd forgotten it.
All the girls.
Yeah, I used to sing
touch
that to him.
All the girls. And I would chime in on the chorus there.
But that was like a core memory unlocked that I'd
Yeah.
completely forgotten about.
I forgot about it too. Okay, so then the next scene is in the pantry. It's Kendra and Destiny. And Kendra's playing with the whipped cream can. And she's using the can like a dick. Do you notice that?
Yeah, it's very phallic.
Yeah. And I was like, wait, what is she? Is she really using the can like a dick? And then it cuts to her in interview saying, Holly and Bridget love the whole glammed up bunny thing, but I'm 20 years old and I'm a rebel.
Yeah, like I'm a little bit of a rebel around here. And it's interesting with the thing with Kendra not wanting to wear the bunny suit. Like that's kind of the conflict they set up for this episode. But in real life, I had zero expectation of her wearing the bunny costume. I offered it to her because I didn't want to leave her out. But I knew she wasn't going to wear it. Like I have pictures, and they even put pictures in the Girls Next Door coffee table book of a previous Operation Playmate thing we had done, where me, you, Destiny and Tiffany Fallon are wearing the military bunny costumes. So even back then, Kendra wasn't wearing it. So I knew she wasn't going to wear it this time, and I'm obviously prepared to wear it because I asked 2 other women to participate, Audra and Jillian. Like, if I had any expectation of Kendra actually wearing the costume, I would have only asked Audra.
Right.
But they set it up to make it look like I'm really perturbed that Kendra's not wearing the bunny costume. And I'm fine with that. Like, it's not the biggest deal in the world if that's what they need for conflict. Like, I'll take an L on that, take one for the team. But just to set the record straight, like, I had 0 expectations of her wearing the bunny costume. I did not care if she wore the bunny costume. Nothing.
Yeah. Well, this sort of bothered me because I feel like the Playboy bunny costume is an honor, in my opinion, to wear, and it's amazing to get that opportunity. And not only that, but in this instance, we're wearing it for the troops, and we're only wearing it for a photo. So it's not like you're asking so much of somebody to have to put on a bunny costume for a photo. And it was hard for me. It's hard for me to justify being so anti-wearing it, that you can't do it, one, because you are at the Playboy Mansion with Hef and posing in the magazine coming up, but 2, you can't even do it for the troops.
But I know what you mean. I totally know what you mean. It's like, really?
Yeah, it's just not asking that much. Like, I totally, and here's the thing too, is like, I get when if people are like, ew, the bunny costume, no, I don't really want to wear that. Like, I get if you're not into it, you're not into it. But you really, but I feel like, first of all, those people wouldn't be at the mansion trying to do Playboy either. And then secondly, I feel like, you couldn't even do it to support the troops, though? Like, really?
You couldn't put it on for 5 seconds.
Yeah, like that, so that just really sort of, I don't know, it's always sort of bothered me. And obviously I'm not gonna, there's bigger issues, and I'm just so happy that everybody was getting along at this time, you know, relatively speaking, that I'm not gonna make that an issue. It's not really my fish to fry with her, whatever you want to say, you know, but like, it did bother me.
And it's not the only instance of that either. Like, we'll get to it later in season 4, but there's other stuff for the troops that, like, she didn't want to do it.
I know. She sprays it all over Bryant and his uniform, and I don't care what anybody wants to say, like, Bryant was pissed.
Yeah, it seemed like it, for sure.
And I know that if we asked him, he'd probably be like, oh no, I know it's just Kendra, it's just what she does, but I know he was pissed. Like, I could tell by the look on his face, and I would have been too.
Yeah.
Like, you're at work, you're in your uniform, and then some chick just, like, sprays you with whipped cream all over your hand, all over your uniform, you're all sticky.
It's very, like, objectifying, too. It's like, you're not a person, I'm just, like...
And she's practically peeing her pants thinking how funny it is.
Yeah.
Like, on the floor laughing about it. And even Destiny is like, oh my God, Kendra, why did you do that?
Yeah.
And she's like trying to clean him up. And she's like, were you trying to get it in his mouth? Which she clearly was not trying to do because it's in his hand and on his vest and stuff. And she's like trying to clean it up while Kendra's still too busy like laughing about it.
Yeah.
And then in the commentary, Kendra tries to play it off and laughs about it and says, oh, Brian liked it. I am confident he did not.
I think you're right. It looked like he was just annoyed and irritated. Like, oh, well, now I'm stuck wearing this the rest of the night. Thanks.
Yeah. So then it cuts to you're at the studio grabbing name tags. And this also alludes to the fact that you knew she was never going to wear it to begin with because, well, first of all, I want to say I love that the bunny stuff is all under lock and key.
Yeah, it was.
And then she was like, she pulls out a name tag. She's like, this is a substitute for Kendra.
Yeah.
So, like, we knew.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah, that was never a plan. Like, it only was offered to her because I'm going to offer it to her just to, like, be inclusive. And also the show was using that as a thing. And you can tell the whole thing is fake because when there's a convo where I call Kendra in her room, even in the commentary, Kendra's like, that wasn't a real phone conversation.
Right.
Like, I was on the phone with my mom and they cut that in with you calling me. So the whole thing was fake. And then they cut to cookie night and there's a very phallic shot of somebody giving a hand job to the cookie roller, the dough roller, the rolling pin.
Yeah.
Rolling pin hand job. I mean, they're not giving it a hand job. They're putting flour on it, but it's a very phallic shot that I think was included purposefully.
Oh, yeah, I think so,
to, like,
too.
sexualize the scene.
Yeah. Why do you think they didn't have a name tag for Jillian?
Because she hadn't been fitted for her own bunny costume at that point. She was just stepping into the Marine one.
Oh.
And just so you guys know, like, those military bunny costumes came from the Playboy clubs in the 80s, because after the Playboy clubs started to, like, lose popularity, they revamped them in the 80s to kind of be like a Hard Rock Cafe.
Oh.
It was no longer like this upscale jazz club comedy venue. It was like kind of like a Hard Rock Cafe, and you had women as bunnies, and you had men who worked there shirtless as rabbits, and all the bunny costumes were like themed. Like, there was that really cute pink lingerie one that like Lauryn Hill wore in the Vegas fashion show that was super cute, and the military ones came from that, so they kept them and used them for like Operation Playmate. But when we put them on that day, none of them were fitted to our bodies. It was
Right.
just like we were hoping and praying we fit into them. And a bunny costume typically will be fitted to you. And we'll get into that a little more later.
Yeah. So
We're doing cookies, and I will say Kendra's being nice in the interviews. Like, she's going out of her way to like not be offensive toward us, because they're asking her like, oh, they like making cookies and you don't. They like wearing the bunny costume and you don't. And I will say she's being really nice and being really careful to like not offend us. It's not necessarily going to stay that way throughout all the seasons, but it's nice in this episode.
yeah, I noticed that Stacey Fuson is eating a grilled cheese sandwich, which I forgot about the mansion grilled cheese sandwiches.
Yeah, those are really good.
And she has a side of skinny fries and
Yum.
an Olive Garden salad, and I'm like, those were all just such staples at the mansion.
They were. The skinny fries were so good.
And I just was looking at that going, oh my god, I'm so hungry. I want that right now.
I know. It sounds so good.
And then talking about phallic stuff, though, you were making the penis cookies for Mary and Norma.
Yes, made penis cookies to drop off for Mary and Norma. And Norma, you don't really see her in this episode, but I would say like she was so funny. Like, they should
No,
have
she
used
does
her.
come and do that whole scene with you and Mary. And she's super funny.
She is funny. They should have used her more.
She comes in, she goes, I wanted to compare our dicks.
Yeah.
And she's like, my dick's bigger than yours, Mary.
That's so funny.
And then Mary goes to pick hers up and the balls break off. She's like, oh. And then she tells you, thanks for busting my balls, Holly. So they were like super funny.
They are funny.
And then, I wanted to shout out some of the playmates that were there too. It was Audra and Stacey Fuson and Penelope Jimenez, Jen Walcott, Tamara Whitmer, Jillian Grace, and then, and Destiny, and then Yumi and Kendra, and then Anastasia was in there too.
Oh, yeah.
Making
A whole table
stuff.
full.
Oh, this is where I also wanted to add about like not getting credit for certain things and stuff. So I had a custom made cookie cutter made.
Oh, yeah.
Of the Playboy bunny.
Mm-hmm.
And it cost me a fortune. Like, I mean, not a fortune.
Yeah.
when you're talking about a cookie cutter, I'm talking, it was like $150 to have like the mold
Mm-hmm.
made and have it made like, it was like one of those like brass or copper or whatever the heck they're made out of ones. Like nice heavy duty ones. And I had that made for this. Was it this or was it something before this? And
I think
we
it
used
was
for this?
cookie night, but a previous one. Probably like a Christmas one or like the previous Operation Playmate one we did.
Yeah. So, but now I notice it's for sale in the Playboy catalog.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. If you go to Playboy online, they have it for sale in there.
Oh, man.
I know. And we use it in this episode. I see some of the cookies coming out. With it.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those like little things. And then Penny made a tit cookie.
Yeah, that was cute.
Tits.
And did you notice the weird pause? And this is just kind of an example of how, like, culty the Hef worship was, which I was totally a part of, too. But Hef comes up to, like, put a little bit of icing on a cookie, and the world stops.
Yeah.
Everyone stops what they're doing. Everyone's at the table, like, looking
Watching
and
the suspense.
what is, oh my god, it reminds me of like a spoiled only child or something. Like, everything they do is so golden. Like, he stops and does like this little squeeze of frosting and just everybody stops.
Yeah.
Silence. Oh my god. And it's crazy to think, you know, that he lived like that for so many years. Like, what does that do to your ego?
Well, and I was thinking about it watching that scene too, and I feel like I would do that all over again, like stop and stare, because Hef with a pastry bag full of frosting in his hand, like frosting a cookie, is something you just never see.
It's weird, yeah.
You would never see that, so it's weird.
But it's weird to watch it and just see, like, it just looks so culty. Like, everybody stops. Like, oh my God, it's like a toddler about to take their first step. Like, wow, what's he gonna do?
And all he did was make a little eye on the bunnies.
know.
Like one little squirt. But it took forever.
It really did. Cookie making is not easy, guys. It's really not.
It's not.
And then they have some fun sound effects. Like when he bites into the cookie, they make it sound like glass breaking.
Yes!
And then when he leaves, there's the sound of a toilet flushing, like to imply that he flushed the cookie.
Yeah.
But just FYI, we decorated the cookies, but we didn't actually make them. The kitchen made them.
Made the dough.
But I
yeah.
think they wanted people to think that like I made it and it was horrible or something.
Yeah.
But they were really good cookies.
I don't remember the toilet flushing. But
Yeah,
I,
like
I
after
saw it. I mean, I saw it this
Uh-huh.
time, but like I don't remember it from before.
Yeah.
And it was actually a really funny scene to do that. But they were
No,
really
it's funny,
The
yeah.
cookies were really good.
The cookies were good, yeah.
So-
It was just a funny gag.
Yeah. And then I already talked about the scene with Norma, but it was so funny.
Yeah, there's a scene with me in Mary's office where I give them the cookies. And that was done in a morning scene, so probably like the morning after when they came to work, because we decorated them in the evening. And I talked before about how like alarmingly skinny I look in this episode, and you can see all I'm eating for breakfast is a grapefruit and coffee. It's
Yeah.
just like,
Oh, I remember that used to be your breakfast a lot.
yeah. I feel like I couldn't even function on that today. I feel like if I had a grapefruit, I would just be like dead by the morning.
Then we go into the next scene. It starts out with my car, by the way, just sitting in the circle all by itself.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd give that a shout out. And then we're all in my room. We're getting ready to put on the military bunny costumes. And it's not just Audra that needs help, by the way, getting zipped up. Like,
Yeah.
all of us need help. They just don't show it. Like, I'm already zipped in. They don't even show you getting in. But so...
Even for a bunny costume that was custom fitted for your body, you needed help to get in. Like, you could never do it by yourself. And I remember when I got into my own bunny costume, I would have to exhale all the air out of my
Yeah.
lungs for them to zip it up. And then I could start breathing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's one of the tricks. You like blow out all the air in your ribs
Mhm.
because then you can like suck in more
Yeah.
and there's more room and then you take in a breath afterwards. The other thing is you pull your boobs out so they're already in the
Uh-huh.
cups because if they're pushed in then you can't get it zipped. Like they are fitted to you to the T, and like you said earlier, these ones weren't even fit for us. So we have to just
yeah.
hope. And if I remember right, and I feel bad about this, but I think that sailor one was the tiniest one of all of them.
I think so too, and I think it was handed to Audra because the sailor one was longer. It was like fitted to whoever was the tallest, and Audra was a little bit
Oh.
taller because I think the woman who usually wore that was Nefertari, and she's a little bit taller. So I think it was like, oh, Audra should have this because she's taller. But this scene we are not a fan of because it turns into really a body shaming scene.
Yeah.
We feel like, and it's not fair because there's nothing wrong with anybody's body. It's just there's nothing wrong with anybody's body not fitting into anything, period. But this is just us trying to fit into a costume that A, is impossible even if it is fitted to you, but B, none of these costumes were fitted to our bodies.
Right.
So we don't like it.
And everybody needs help getting into it. And so I try to help Audra at first. I can't get it because it's really, they're just so hard to zip. And then Audra calls down for two butlers. I think it's funny that she
Yeah.
automatically says two butlers, so to come up and help. And then they have you in there helping too. But Audra's making funny faces in it. Like I
She
do think
is,
the
yeah.
scene is funny.
It is
and I
funny.
do think that Audra's playing into it. Like
Yeah, I
asking
think so
for two
too.
butlers
Yeah.
and making the funny faces and stuff. And then when they finally like get it zipped, they use a scream of you going down the slip and slide
Oh
as
my
like
God,
a scream
that's
coming from her.
Funny. That's hilarious.
I'm like, wait, I recognize that slip and slide scream. And then later they show the slip and slides and it's that same scream, I swear.
Yeah, this was like the back cleavage scene because when you're in this thing so tight, it gives you like back cleavage.
Yeah, but honestly, some of the corsets I wore gave me way worse back cleavage than she
Yeah.
had. She just had a little tiny
For
back
sure.
cleavage. And then Kendra walks in during that whole process and they make it look like she's like freaking out watching what's happening.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in commentary she's like, oh, the only reason I didn't want to wear it was because I didn't have my hair and makeup done, and I don't want to have to see me in a bunny costume for the first time with no hair and makeup done. But she wore a bunny costume before for a group photo I had taken of us for HEF.
Yeah, and
So that's not the reason. Not that it matters. Like, again, like, I don't care if she wears the bunny costume, but it's just like this weird roundabout thing.
yeah, and none of us had our hair and makeup done professionally.
Yeah, it was just like that
we
was
had done
our
our
day.
own hair and
Yeah.
makeup, but nobody had professional hair and makeup before we got into the bunny costume. Not even the playmates get professional hair and makeup done before they get into a bunny costume. They all have to do it on their own.
And another interesting thing about that scene is, I remember when everybody was changing, I told Jillian, oh, go into the bathroom to change, because there's cameras there catching our every move. And granted, we still think we're going to be blurred on TV, but still, like, we're not getting paid. The playmates are definitely not getting paid to be in this scene, and they're not the stars of the show. So I'm like, go into the bathroom and change. And I remember it turned into an uproar later, and production was pissed at me for telling them to go to the bathroom and change because they want to get all the nudity they can get. And I'm like, that's fucking gross.
Yeah.
Like, the playmates are getting nothing out of the show, literally.
Right.
So that was annoying and weird. And also, I forgot to mention this too, but when we were talking about Playmates earlier, they insert footage from Playboy Playmate videos. So it's all this fully nude footage, which obviously they shot that footage and knew it was going to be out there, but they knew it was going to be out there on Playboy TV,
Right.
which is a cable channel nobody fucking has.
Or
They knew it was going to be on DVDs. They didn't know it was going to be on a mainstream show on the E! Network and on DVDs that everybody's
and
buying.
broadcast worldwide
Yeah.
without any kind of censoring.
Exactly. So they just ran amok with any nudity they could get out of us.
I wanted to go back to when you were talking about Kendra with the hair and makeup and stuff
Mm-hmm.
too. I was thinking this wasn't last minute either. Obviously there was a
Yeah,
lot of
for sure.
preparation going into this, so she really wanted to wear it. She could have had her hair and makeup done.
Yeah,
for
so that
this.
wasn't the reason.
Yeah, I just had to add that
Yeah,
because
no,
I'm like,
that makes
wait, that
sense.
doesn't make any sense. In there.
Exactly.
And then even Audra says in the scene, I don't understand why she won't wear it. Like, it's such a privilege and an honor to wear a bunny costume. And it's really, I mean, it is something that most people have to earn.
Yeah. And I feel really bad when I'm watching this episode because I'm watching the commentary and Kendra is going in on Audra. And I
Oh,
feel
I
bad
know
because
that.
I'm laughing along with her. And I feel bad about that now because I shouldn't have been doing that. And I feel like it's a really body shaming scene. And Kendra's like, karma! And this was coming on the heels of us being told that Audra stole the gift, which we still don't know the story behind. We'd love to talk to Audra about that. But that's what we had been told, so that's what we understood is, oh, Audra stole the gift, and we all thought that was really weird and out of character. But there was something, and I don't know if it was one-sided or if it was two-sided, but there was like a hostility between Audra and Kendra that, I mean, it was clear.
Yeah. And I don't
And-
know why.
Yeah.
I mean, I know why after this point, but I don't know
Mhm.
why prior to this point. But I do want to say, too, in this scene that we're filming in my room, we do not know about the bag yet.
Yeah, no.
In commentary, we know about the bag,
Mhm.
but like in this scene, we don't know yet. So if you guys are wondering like why we're so friendly with Audra after she just stole the bag, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
Kendra doesn't know yet either. But yeah, in commentary, she's like Karma bites you in the ass, and she's like really making fun,
And she talks about it in her book, too. And it's like, ugh.
well, and not only that, but the producer of the show was pissed about Audra stealing the bag, and he deliberately made her look bad and did shame her in this scene.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Because he thought because she stole the bag that was like free reign for him to make her a joke.
Yeah.
So that sucks.
Yeah, so she really got, I mean, she whatever her reasons for taking the bag, and hopefully she comes on the show and talks to us, are those reasons, but she still didn't deserve, like, being fat shamed in a scene, and
Yeah.
then trash talked in the commentary, and all that kind of stuff, so.
Her hair looks amazing. I'm so jealous of Audra's hair. Like, seeing it on her Instagram now, she has the longest,
I know.
thickest hair, and she's like, oh girl, as soon as the supply chain clears up, I'm gonna send you some shampoo that I make. I'm like, yes, please. She has like insane Rapunzel hair.
Well, doesn't she have, like, doesn't she make shampoo for dogs or something?
Yeah.
For pets?
Yeah, but I think she like makes human stuff too. I don't know if she sells it, but
Interesting. I'd love to hear all about it.
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I just really think that they looked at it as a way of kind of getting back at her for
Mhm.
doing Kendra wrong.
Yeah, or trying to like milk drama however they could.
Yeah, that's true too.
So we've been talking for quite a while, so we think we're going to take a little break, and we will be back next week with the rest of this episode.
Yeah, because there's so much more to talk about.
So thanks for listening, guys, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.